Hold this, please.
"1992 was one of those TV years where big swings felt like the only strategy. Networks chased the next trend. Darker procedurals, surreal comedies, premium-feeling dramas without the premium channel, and yes, wave after wave of the next Simpsons. A lot of those bets looked great in a pitch meeting. Some even had hit songs, name brand creators, or clever hooks you could sum up in 5 words. But once they landed in the schedule, up against brutal competition, mismatched lead-ins, and changing audience tastes, the cracks showed fast. What we're looking at tonight isn't just a list of bombs. It's a highlight reel of how TV development goes sideways. Tone that confuses the target viewer. Marketing that sells a different show than the one delivered. High concepts that can't sustain week to week. And time slots that quietly kneecap a series before it has a chance to breathe. As we count down the biggest flops of 1992, think about the pattern that keeps repeating. A shiny idea with one fatal mismatch. Wrong night, wrong tone, wrong audience, or simply the wrong cultural moment. Some of these deserved better. Some never had it. And a few are fascinating precisely because they failed so quickly you can still feel the impact when you rewatch the pilot. If you love deep dives into TV's almost wheres and what ifs, tap like and subscribe before we start the list. It helps the channel reach other nostalgia nerds, and it tells the algorithm we're the kind of weird you want more of. Alright, let's dive in. 10. The Heights, Fox. Imagine launching a drama about a struggling band, and the theme song becomes a #1 hit while the show can't hold a time slot. That's The Heights in a nutshell. The series arrived with a legit pop culture moment. How Do You Talk to an Angel owned radio. But the weekly storytelling never matched the buzz. The music promised a sweeping, romantic saga. The show delivered a fairly standard soap with earnest characters, familiar struggles, and not enough edge to stand out on Fox's lineup. It wasn't terrible. It was ordinary at a time when Fox was cashing in on attitude. There's also the strange math of music TV synergy. A hit single can spike curiosity, but it can't fix structural issues. A diffuse ensemble, a tonal palette that felt more afternoon special than 9 p.m. drama, and plots that resolved just when you hoped they'd complicate. The Heights is a perfect case study in chasing a phenomenon instead of building a repeatable series engine. Viewers came for the hook, sampled the pilot, and didn't see a reason to schedule it into their week. When the single faded, so did the show. It's rare to watch a pop hit outlive its parent series in cultural memory, but that's the legacy here. A catchy song, and a reminder that soundtrack sizzle can't carry narrative stake. From music that couldn't save a soap to animation that couldn't conquer prime time. 9. Fish Police, CBS. Fish Police swam into a shark tank. On paper, a noir-inflected, adult-leaning cartoon set underwater sounded like a playful counterpunch to The Simpsons. In practice, it confused the available audience. The tone leaned wry and innuendo-heavy, but CBS parked it where families might stumble onto it expecting something cuddly. That mismatch left adults wondering why they were watching cartoon fish, and kids wondering why the jokes felt oddly grown up. Tonally clever doesn't matter if the slot and brand promise don't help people get you in the first 5 minutes. The animation boom of the early 90s taught networks a harsh lesson. You can't simply will a primetime cartoon for adults into success by positioning alone. The Simpsons worked because it was a family sitcom with bite. Fish Police was a genre spoof with niche flavor. The production design was stylish, and there were sparks of a world you could have explored over time. But a high-wire tonal act needs patience from the network and a runway for audiences to calibrate. Instead, Fish Police got a short leash, quick comparisons to shows it could never be, and ratings that pointed straight to cancellation. It remains a neat relic of a TV moment when everyone wanted animated lightning to strike twice, without realizing the weather had changed. And speaking of next Simpsons casualties. 8. Capital Critters, ABC. Capital Critters tried to blend political satire with rodent-level relatability. Mice and roaches living inside the White House, reacting to human policies from the shadows. That premise promised sharp commentary and kid-friendly design, a tough needle to thread. The series landed in an uncanny valley, too soft and allegorical for adults craving pointed satire, too heavy and talky for kids wanting pratfalls and comfort. Even its marketing seemed undecided. Was this an edgy lampoon of Washington, or a cuddly adventure that just happened to live in a famous address? What really hurt was the weekly rhythm. Good satire needs a firm POV and recurring comic engines. Capital Critters often floated between metaphors and morals. You could feel the potential. Paint the West Wing with the anxieties of the little creatures scurrying underfoot. But episodes tended to announce big ideas rather than dramatize them. In the early 90s, ABC still had a family brand halo, and the show's odd mix didn't slot alongside the network's broader comedies. The result? Curiosity sampling, then a steep drop. Years later, some unaired episodes would trickle out on cable, and you can see the skeleton of a smarter, leaner show inside. But in 1992, timing and targeting smothered the experiment before it could evolve. If political vermin couldn't find the audience, maybe prestige creators could. Right? 7. On the Air, ABC. Coming off Twin Peaks, David Lynch and Mark Frost delivered a sitcom love letter to old-school television, a live variety show in the 1950s that goes hilariously wrong. On the Air is full of inspired, absurdist gags, malfunctioning equipment, chaotic egos, and a universe where logic bends for the punchline. It's also unapologetically eccentric. That's the charm and the curse. ABC's summer burn-off slot didn't help. Dropping a delicate left-of-center comedy onto Saturday nights basically guaranteed that only the most curious would tune in, and even they needed a few episodes to speak the language. The series' DNA rewards patient viewers, running bits that build, characters who become funnier as their quirks calcify, and a tone that says, we're playing our own game. But patience is the one commodity a fragile show rarely gets. Casual audiences expecting a conventional multicam sitcom found something stranger and more theatrical. Critics who loved the inventiveness couldn't translate that into ratings. The end result is classic 1992, a gorgeous misfit built for cult status abroad and VHS hunting at home. On the Air didn't crash because it was bad. It crashed because it needed the exact opposite of what it got: time, a friendlier slot, and an audience primed for charming nonsense. From surreal charm to a concept that asked you to love a wisecracking dragon. 6. Scorch, CBS. You can picture the pitch. A tiny animatronic dragon becomes the chaotic sidekick to a local TV weatherman. In a children's block? Maybe. In primetime? That's a steeper climb. Scorch leaned into sass and puppetry nostalgia, but its central dynamic was calibrated for younger viewers, while the time slot and network audience skewed older. That friction made the laugh lines feel slightly out of phase. The jokes were big and broad, the adult situational stakes small and tidy. As a weekly engine, it boiled down to Scorch causes trouble, human cleans up, which tires quickly if the character relationships don't deepen. Execution matters with high-concept comedy. Alf thrived because its family ensemble grounded the puppet mayhem. Scorch never found a comparable balance. The human world felt thin, the workplace satire undercooked, and the dragon, a technical feat, needed better material than adorable menace. Once critics shrugged and viewers drifted, CBS had little incentive to hold the slot, especially with production costs tied to puppetry and effects. In the end, Scorch is a time capsule lesson. If your hook screams kid appeal, your storytelling either has to climb to adult cleverness, or your scheduling has to meet the show where it lives. Neither happened here, and the flame went out fast. If puppets couldn't win the night, maybe a Teen Mind movie could. 5. Great Scott, Fox. Before Spider-Man made him a star, Tobey Maguire fronted Great Scott, a single-camera comedy that let viewers peek into a teenager's turbocharged imagination. Cutaways to stylized fantasy sequences were the signature, a clever device that promised energy and surreal humor. The problem wasn't the idea, it was consistency. The show sometimes felt like it was in search of itself. Half teen sitcom, half sketch engine, with the heartwarming beats landing just as the absurdity revved up. That tonal whiplash can be fun once in a while. Weekly, it's a tightrope. Fox's Sunday ecosystem was both a blessing and a curse. Lead-ins with sharper, surer voices made Great Scott look wobbly by comparison, and the schedule churn meant the series never got a rhythm with audiences. Ratings sank. Unaired episodes piled up. And yet, watch the surviving episodes, and you'll see a proto-playbook for later series that fuse heightened imagination with slice-of-life storytelling. The lesson, as ever in 1992, is that craft and concept need an on-ramp. With more time to refine the tone and build recurring comic engines around Maguire's charm, Great Scott might have found a cult foothold. Instead, it became a fun trivia note in a very famous career, and a reminder that smart gimmicks are starters, not the meal. From teen surreality to chrome and leather sci-fi cop drama. 4. Mann Machine, NBC. Mann Machine paired a gruff detective with a female android partner, tossing near-future satire into a familiar cop template. That hybrid sounded marketable. Come for the case, stay for the banter about what makes us human. But execution zigzagged between earnest procedural and winking futuristic parody. One week you'd get a straight case of the week, the next, a broader send-up of tech culture. Viewers who wanted streamlined, Law & Order-style comfort didn't get it. Viewers who wanted hard sci-fi ideas found the cases too conventional. The series sat exactly between two lanes, honking to both, merging with neither. Scheduling didn't help. Without a strong lead-in or clear identity, the show's world-building had to do heavy lifting fast. And world-building is the one thing you can't rush. There were bright spots. Yancey Butler's performance had charisma, and the partnership concept could have matured into something richer. But weekly television rewards consistency, and the flavor profile here kept changing just as you acquired a taste for it. The result was a quick fade, a handful of episodes, and another early 90s reminder that mixing genre spice into a network procedural needs either a fearless POV or a protective time slot. Mann Machine had neither. If a synthetic partner couldn't lock in viewers, maybe a flesh and fur partner could. 3. Tequila and Bonetti, CBS. Cop shows plus talking animals are a subgenre that surfaces every decade or so, and Tequila and Bonetti is its 1992 entry. A big-hearted detective and a wisecracking dog narrating his thoughts. The show wanted to be disarmingly sweet and lightly comic against crime hour stakes. That's a tough balance. When the case is serious, the dog quips can feel flippant. When the banter takes over, the case feels trivial. The tonal seesaw left the series looking unsure of its own rules. Was this a heartfelt dramedy with a fanciful device? Or a gimmick-driven comedy that occasionally remembered the precinct? Audience expectations did the rest. CBS viewers in '92 weren't primed for magical realist cop fare. They wanted straight shooters or prestige-leaning drama. Reviews leaned skeptical. The talking dog marketing didn't convert curiosity into loyalty, and word of mouth stalled. The show later found a curious second life overseas, which tells you there was a version of this that could work with different calibration. But the US run is another case, where a single high-concept pitch overshadowed the weekly storytelling craft needed to make it sing. Tequila and Bonetti tried to be a cuddle and a collar pop at once, and audiences didn't buy the combo. From furry partners to a man who can't remember his own past. 2. The Fifth Corner, NBC. High production values, a sleek amnesiac spy, and a promise to unravel a shadowy past. The Fifth Corner arrived with the cinematic confidence networks love to promote. The pilot looked expensive. The premise was evergreen. But the spy resurgence of the early 90s came with its own challenge. To stand out, you needed either a daring structural twist or characters with immediate, irresistible pull. The series never quite delivered either. The central mystery felt more assembled than urgent, and the case of the week scaffolding blunted what should have been a spiraling, serialized hook. Fast cancellation stories are rarely about a single flaw. They're about the speed at which audiences decide a show isn't appointment worthy. After the premiere's curiosity, retention dipped. Without a killer cliffhanger or a breakout character to anchor the mythology, the network's patience evaporated. What's left is a curiosity, a reminder that looks like a hit and plays like a hit are different things. The Fifth Corner had the glossy sheen of a thriller, but not the narrative gravity to keep viewers orbiting. In an age before streaming binges forgave slow burns, that was a fatal gap. We close with a lavish period gamble that never found its court. 1. Covington Cross, ABC. Lavish costumes, castle intrigue, and a family of knights navigating honor, politics, and romance. Covington Cross was ABC's attempt to bottle a bit of swashbuckling charm. The production values were legit. The premise could have supported a syndicated-style adventure with episodic quests and slow-blooming arcs. But launching a medieval drama on network TV requires precision. The night matters, the lead-in matters, and the tone has to invite casual viewers who aren't already history buffs. Parked on a tough night, the series struggled to announce a must-see identity. Was it romance-forward, adventure-driven, family saga? You could sense a bit of all three, which means none of them cut through. There's also the weekly cost of transporting viewers. Period shows need time for audiences to learn the map. Who's feuding with whom? Which castle corridors matter? Why this duel is personal? Without patient scheduling, that onboarding becomes a hurdle. Covington Cross never cleared it. Episodes aired out of rhythm. Some didn't air at all in the initial run, robbing the show of momentum and word of mouth. Revisit it now, and you'll see a charming throwback that might have flourished as a syndicated staple or a cable original a few years later. In 1992, on a Big Four network Saturday, it was always a long shot. Conclusion. So what did 1992 teach the gatekeepers, and maybe us as armchair programmers? First, concept is the invitation, not the party. A hit theme song, a surrealist pedigree, a talking animal, a medieval wardrobe. Those are the fireworks outside the venue. Once the door opens, viewers want a vibe they recognize, characters they'll revisit, and a schedule that respects their habit. Second, tone is destiny. Shows that straddle lanes without a strong point of view risk pleasing no one. And third, placement is product. A tough night, a mismatched lead-in, or a burn-off strategy can turn promising curios into footnotes before they've had a chance to evolve. If you watched any of these live back in the day, or discovered them later on DVD rips and late-night cable, drop your memories in the comments. Which deserved a second season? Which should have been a TV movie and called it good? And which forgotten oddball do you secretly love? If you enjoyed this tour through 1992's glorious misfires, hit like and subscribe so we can keep digging into the almost hits, the near classics, and the beautiful disasters that make TV history way more interesting than the highlight reels.